Do you want to go first, Dave?
Yeah, sure. So we're working on a game called The Corruption Within, and this is a first-person point-and-click adventure game set in Victorian England. I suppose it's got sort of certain elements of horror, but I'd describe it more as a psychological thriller. It's built up very much on the narrative and the atmosphere. And development has been it's been tricky at times due to events in my personal life, I guess, have stopped me from spending as much time as I would have liked at certain points. But generally speaking, it's going to the schedule that we set, and we're now at the point of testing it ourselves, and just very soon going to be getting our beta test team involved. So we're still looking to hopefully release it in the quite near future.
Yeah, I'll just add to it that the game is played from a first-person perspective. It's a point-and-click adventure game, and I would also describe it as psychological thriller, in the sense that we want the game to dwell in the feeling of menace, that there is danger lurking, and that you don't know where it's going to come from or from whom. And in that way, we want to evoke a sense of paranoia, maybe, to keep it vague who you can trust, because people give you obscure signals and messages throughout the game.
Okay, then. So following from that, how macabre would you say your game is? How much can someone expect to be spooked, as they say?
How much they can expect to be spooked?
Yes.
Well, I can't say that we have jump scares. Perhaps there is one, but there are definitely spooky moments or moments of dread where danger is hinted at, but it's always there in the background.
Yeah. Sorry, Aviv.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's more a sense of the atmosphere slowly building up and the mystery building up, rather than giving you a, as Aviv said, it's not really giving you a jump scare every 2 or 3 minutes, but as you get drawn into the mystery, you've got these characters that you talk to, and you're going to be thinking, okay, well, is this someone who's going to help me? Is this someone who's going to tie me up and torture me, or whatever, just as an example. So it really is more about the atmosphere slowly building up, hopefully to a real crescendo right at the end, as everything actually. I do apologise for the noise. My little girl has just gone through smashing doors as she goes.
That's fine.
So yeah, so it's not. It's about the game slowly pulling you into the world and giving you that sense of the player character of being in a desperate situation and trying to work out who you can trust, who you can't trust, and just really where each character is going to take you. We've tried very hard to have each character have very specific backstory and motives, and often they overlap, and you might not find out until quite late in the game what character has been leading you along the garden path the whole way, and which character you might have thought was quite dubious perhaps is actually one that could be helpful.
Yeah, dubious is a good word.
Yes.
Exactly what I want to hear as well. So with the topic of characters and backstories in mind, in the Steam page, The Corruption Within is described as a game with a strong narrative taking place in a Victorian setting, right? So Can you tell us a bit more about the story then? What exactly happens in the game?
Right, so the story starts where you're with your family on a camping holiday, and on the last day your wife and children disappear. So basically and because it's Victorian times, you can't just flick your cell phone and give someone a call. you're in the middle of nowhere and have to find them, and the only civilization that's anywhere in the area that you can see is this mansion. So obviously you gravitate towards this mansion, but when you get there, you find the inhabitants are not entirely what you'd call normal.
They are at the very least eccentric.
That's to be kind with some of them.
Yeah, indeed.
Okay.
I don't want to say too much more about the plot because obviously it's the game is designed to slowly build up. And I don't want to reveal too much right now.
Yeah, I get you. It's a very plot-heavy game, so you can't say much without spoiling it. I understand. So, with that in mind, point and clicks, they have been kind of in the shadow for quite a while, haven't they? But thanks to the indie scene, a lot of genres that have, just been under the weather for some time have seen a bit of a resurgence, if you'd say.
Mm-hmm.
Now, and a lot of these games, they're made by people who have been inspired by games of the past, games that they love. And with the corruption within, it has a strong sense of these like old point-and-click video games of the golden age. What would you say are some of the key inspirations for this game?
Mm-hmm. So, yeah, that's a good question. There isn't a particular game I can point to. Mainly the inspiration came from art, from art books, and I would say that art from other first-person perspective adventure games such as the Manhunter games, which are late 80s Sierra games. Also adventure games, 2D, first-person, can be dirty, sometimes gruesome. But I can't think of one game that is quite like that. Unless you can, Dave.
No, I'm just thinking. In all honesty, it's not the sort of game particularly I tend to play. My preference is more towards the LucasArts style games, third person, probably comedy, but atmosphere rich.
Something like Monkey Island then?
So Monkey Island, The Dig, Zack McCracken, Indiana Jones, all those sort of games. But we've not really tried to sort of imitate any specific style. It's kind of organically grown into its very own distinctive style of game. I guess maybe it's a little bit reminiscent of some of the hybrid text graphic adventure games I remember from the Atari ST years ago, like Dreamscape or something like that. But obviously, it's a much more modern style, even though the graphics are very retro. So I'd really say it's very much its own game. It's I've certainly not ever played anything quite like it before myself.
I would say that it is modern in the sense that you cannot die, you cannot get stuck in the game, so there are no dead ends. So these are like conveniences that we added to the game.
Okay then, so I'm going to shift the focus of it to the game's art itself. Now, the game, by the way, looks great. I want to mention that first. Really, I like how it looks. But the question I was going to say is that from what I've seen from the game's footage, sometimes when the player interacts with a certain NPC, there's a close-up shot of the NPCs. So what was the reason for that decision? And are there any gameplay elements tied to that?
What is the reason for the close-up? Well, that's pretty easy to to answer. That's an inspiration from Sierra games, where, particularly the Gabriel Knight games, or the first Gabriel Knight, where when you would speak with a character, then a dialogue screen would open with all the things you can talk about, and a portrait of the character, of the NPC, will appear in higher res. I think it adds a lot of flavor and character.
It does add to the immersion.
Oh, sorry, what was that?
Yes, yes, I can see the characterization factor. It does add a lot to immersion.
Yeah, I simply loved Gabriel Knight and how they handled dialogues in the game, and partly because of Gabriel Knight, I suppose we've added a dialogue system to the game with branching paths that the conversation can take.
Like, from what I've gathered, your team already has a point-and-click game out called Void Bridge, right? So my question...
Yeah. Are you asking about Void Bridge?
Yes. So my question
Yes.
was that, what's new and different in the your upcoming game, The Corruption Within, when compared to your older title, Void Bridge?
Oh, it's quite different. In fact, art style is different. The palette is very different. In this game, I use a palette that is very dark and highly saturated to suit the nighttime setting. Void Bridge uses mostly a typical 16 color palette. There are no dialogues in Void Bridge. There are a few exchanges between the characters, but there isn't any real conversation taking place. You have a character in Void Bridge that moves across the screen, something that doesn't exist in The Corruption Within, because it plays from a first-person perspective.
Right.
And Void Bridge is more... The Corruption Within takes place in a world much like ours. There is no science fiction there. Nothing fantastical takes place. It dwells in reality, whereas Void Bridge is very fantastical sci-fi. It's very... there are two very quite different games.
Yeah, having played Void Breach, I wonder what you were taking when you made that, because it is just so, it's so out there. Whereas I wasn't involved at all in Void Breach. That was just purely Aviv's project. But my main point-and-click adventure game that I've designed was Captain Disaster in Death Has a Million Stomping Boots. So again, it really couldn't be any different in style. That was just totally whacked out. It's comedy, science fiction. You went to different planets, third person. So I think for both of us, The Corruption Within has been quite a learning curve in terms of how to actually make this game. But somehow it wouldn't really work in third person to the same way. I don't feel the decision to do it first person at the beginning was made by us for various different reasons. But as the game has progressed, I don't think we could have done it another way and made it as good a game as it's going to be.
Okay then, and that actually follows up nicely to my next question, which is, from the shift in settings from the previous games you've worked on, what unique opportunities and challenges arose?
I mean, really, everything about this project is unique to me. It's much more it's serious and much more based on realism.
Indeed.
It's first person. It's sort of serious, veering towards the psychological thriller horror side. And one of the things is that the puzzles, we had to make sure that even if the puzzles are quite maybe complex or quite, I don't know how to describe it, imaginative and surreal, but at the same time, they had to be something that potentially could happen in real life. So there's no, for instance, you've got a wooden box and you need to get inside it. Let's pick up a bunch of woodworms and stick them on top and suddenly it will time warp to none of that. So that's been quite a big thing in terms of the actual puzzle design. And for getting Victorian historical era details correct, the amount of research I've done on various things I never thought I was going to ever want to know about has just been massive. And again, that's totally different from my other games. And I just make up whatever works. But this time, anything that I include that's of the era has to actually have properly existed in Victorian times. So that's everything really has been different from this game from how I normally design games.
Also, some of the puzzles can be quite layered. They have layers to them, so you need to do certain things to accomplish something. So you have to make sure that you have a system of hints that progressively unlocks. So the more the player interacts with the environment and discovers new things, then the more hints he learns to help him solve the puzzles.
I see. So this the main thing that about this game, in contrast to your games before, is that the setting is very grounded in reality, from my understanding. Okay.
Indeed, yeah.
Okay then. So the game isn't out yet, right? So what can people expect? The people who are eagerly awaiting your game, what can they expect in the near future? Is there any news you'd like to share?
So the game is right now code complete. I've just done a first playthrough, like I think a couple of days ago, from the very start to the very end. And there are some things you discover only when you do a complete playthrough. Very peculiar bugs that you can't detect otherwise. The game will enter beta stage in May, so just over a week from now, and we hope to get it released in July. So that's 2 more months from now.
Okay, so we're reaching the end of the interview. Would you like to say some final parting words to our viewers and fans of your game who are eagerly awaiting for it?
Well, it's going to be released very soon. We would very much like it if you could have a look at it, see if you like it, wishlist, and if you like what you see, then get it when it gets out.
Yeah, and on the Steam page there is a demo available. It's a very short demo. We were slightly worried about releasing such a short one, but obviously being narrative heavy, we didn't want to reveal too much of the plot. But we've had a pretty overwhelmingly positive response from that. So if anyone's interested, have a look at the demo, wishlist it, and we're just really hoping that we create a game that as good as people are expecting, because there does seem to be quite a bit of buzz now starting to slowly build around the game. So we're just gonna do the best we can to give people the game that they're hoping for.
Okay then, I'm glad to hear that, and thank you for your time, and thank you viewers for watching this video. Please make sure to look up The Corruption Within and wishlist it, because it's coming out in just a few months. Okay, thank you.
Thanks for having us.